Moses, the deliverer of Israel. Hello, viewers. I welcome you to another episode of Heroes of Faith, and I will be discussing the life and legacy of Moses, the deliverer of Israel. Moses, a central figure in the Bible, was a prophet, leader, and lawgiver in Israelite history. Born in Egypt, he was saved from Pharaoh's decree to kill Hebrew infants, and he was raised in Pharaoh's household. Called by God through the burning bush, Moses led the Israelites out of slavery in Egypt during the Exodus. He parted the Red Sea, received the 10 Commandments on Mount Sinai, and guided the Israelites through the wilderness toward the Promised Land, embodying faith, obedience, and leadership. The story of Moses begins in a time of great despair. The Israelites, descendants of Jacob, were enslaved by the Egyptians, toiling under the cruel hand of Pharaoh. Fearing the growing population of the Hebrews, Pharaoh issued a horrific decree. Every male Hebrew child born was to be cast into the Nile River. Amid this darkness, a child was born to a Levite couple. His mother, Jochebed, saw that he was no ordinary child. Desperate to save him, she hid him for 3 months. When she could hide him no longer, she crafted a small basket, waterproofed it with tar and pitch, and placed her precious son inside. With a heavy heart, she set the basket afloat on the Nile, entrusting her child to the mercy of God. As the basket drifted, it was discovered by none other than Pharaoh's daughter, who had come to bathe in the river. Moved by the sight of the helpless infant, she decided to adopt him, naming him Moses, meaning drawn out of the water. Through divine providence, Moses' sister Miriam, who had been watching from a distance, offered to find a Hebrew nurse for the baby. Thus, Moses' own mother was chosen to nurse him, ensuring that he would know his heritage even as he grew up in the royal palace. Moses was raised as a prince of Egypt, educated in all the wisdom of the Egyptians. Yet he never forgot his people. One day, while observing the harsh treatment of the Hebrew slaves, Moses saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew man. Enraged, Moses struck the Egyptian, killing him. Realizing that his act was known, Moses fled into the wilderness of Midian, leaving behind his royal life. In Midian, Moses found refuge with Jethro, a priest, and married his daughter, Zipporah. For 40 years, Moses lived as a shepherd, tending flocks in the solitude of the desert. It seemed his days of greatness were over. But God had not forgotten him. One day, while leading his flock near Mount Horeb, Moses encountered a sight that would change his life forever: a bush engulfed in flames, yet not consumed. As he approached, a voice called out from the fire, "Moses! Moses!" "Here I am," Moses replied. The voice identified itself as the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. God revealed that he had seen the suffering of his people and had chosen Moses to deliver them from Egypt. Trembling, Moses protested, "Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh?" God assured him, "I will be with you." To further reassure Moses, God gave him signs: a staff that turned into a serpent, a hand that became leprous and then healed, and the promise of his divine name, "I am who I am." Still hesitant, Moses pleaded for someone else to be sent, but God's choice was firm. Reluctantly, Moses accepted, with his brother Aaron appointed as his spokesman. Moses returned to Egypt, accompanied by his brother Aaron, who served as his spokesman. Boldly confronting Pharaoh, Moses delivered God's command, "Let my people go." But Pharaoh's heart was hardened. He dismissed the demand, and so began a dramatic showdown between the power of God and the defiance of Egypt. First, the Nile turned to blood, killing the fish and leaving the land stinking. Next, frogs swarmed the land, invading homes and beds. Next, gnats covered man and beast alike. Next, swarms of flies darkened the air. Next, a plague killed the livestock of Egypt. Next, boils broke out on the skin of the Egyptians. Next, hail rained down, destroying crops and livestock. Next, locusts devoured anything left standing. Next, darkness covered the land for 3 days. Finally, the death of every firstborn in Egypt struck a devastating blow. God instructed the Israelites to sacrifice a lamb and mark their doorposts with its blood. When the angel of death passed through Egypt, it would pass over the homes marked with blood. This event became known as the Passover. Pharaoh, grieving the loss of his own son, finally relented and allowed the Israelites to leave. Thus began their exodus from Egypt, with Moses leading them toward freedom. No sooner had the Israelites left than Pharaoh's heart hardened once more. He pursued them with his army, trapping them at the shores of the Red Sea. The people cried out in fear, but Moses stood firm, declaring, "The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still." At God's command, Moses stretched out his staff over the sea, and the waters parted, forming walls on either side. The Israelites crossed on dry ground, but when the Egyptians followed, the waters returned, drowning Pharaoh's army. The journey through the wilderness was fraught with challenges. The people grumbled about the lack of food and water, yet God provided manna from heaven and water from a rock. At Mount Sinai, Moses ascended to receive the law, including the 10 Commandments, written by the finger of God. While Moses was on the mountain, the Israelites fell into idolatry, crafting a golden calf and worshiping it. Enraged, Moses smashed the stone tablets and interceded with God to spare the people. God forgave them, and new tablets were made. For 40 years, Moses led the Israelites, guiding them through battles, rebellions, and hardships. Under his leadership, the Israelites grew from a group of enslaved people into a nation ready to claim their inheritance. Despite his closeness to God, Moses was not without flaws. One significant failure occurred at Meribah, where the people once again complained of thirst. God instructed Moses to speak to a rock to bring forth water, but in his frustration, Moses struck the rock twice with his staff, disobeying God's command and taking credit for the miracle. This act of disobedience carried severe consequences. God informed Moses that he would not enter the promised land. Though forgiven, Moses would only see the land from a distance, a poignant reminder of the weight of leadership and the importance of obedience. Moses' journey ended on Mount Nebo, where God showed him the promised land from a distance. Though he could not enter, he saw the fulfillment of God's promise to Abraham. Moses died there at the age of 120, and God himself buried him in a valley. His grave remains unknown. The Bible records that there has never been another prophet like Moses, whom the Lord knew face to face. His life was a testament to God's power and grace, a reminder that even the humblest shepherd can be called to greatness. Moses' story teaches us many lessons. Trust in God's plan. Moses' journey from the Nile to Mount Nebo shows that God's plans are greater than our understanding. Faith over fear. Despite his initial reluctance, Moses trusted God and accomplished what seemed impossible. The power of intercession. Moses repeatedly stood in the gap for his people, showing the importance of prayer and advocacy. Obedience matters. Moses' failure to enter the promised land reminds us that even small acts of disobedience have consequences. God's grace is sufficient. Despite his imperfections, Moses was used mightily by God. Moses' life, filled with miracles, challenges, and faith, continues to inspire generations to trust in God's promises and live courageously in his purpose. His legacy endures not only as a central figure in the Bible, but as a timeless example of faith, courage, and perseverance. His story is a testament to the transformative power of God working through an ordinary man called to do extraordinary things. That was the life and legacy of Moses. I hope you were blessed by his story. Thank you for watching and listening. Look through our channel for other inspiring episodes. Please like and share this video. Also subscribe to my channel and click the notification bell so that you will be notified whenever I drop a new, life-changing and entertaining video. See you in the next video.